This video is brought to you by a huge mountain of drugs. Brenard versus Reese. And we want some ramp in this deck. 4 mana can be quite a lot to ask for in today's game of Commander, so... Alright, that's not very early ramp, but it is ramp and we did ask for that, so we will not ship that back. Get rid of a forest. Can obviously fish basics out with the ramp spells here. And it is a turn 1, Reese the Redeemed, as you would expect. And we see a Selfless Spirit, so just going to go after a tapped Tricycle land, I think. Lightning Greaves, and that goes on to the Reese immediately. And whacking us for 1 point of commander damage. Okay, another land for us, so let's just drop a forest, and it can be the Selfless Spirit here. This is the multiplayer regular variant that we've already seen on the channel of Brenard. Didn't decide to edit it for 1v1 at all, because... wasn't a particularly popular commander, but I think that this is one of the most fun commanders from the set. So I wanted to play it again here, and hopefully we'll get a good game in here. That is Wood Elves for our opponents, so I might suggest that this is Elf Tribal. And then Lightning Greaves going over to the Wood Elves simply to try and trade us here. Willing to trade away the Reese for the sake of the Selfless Spirit, which we're not going to be doing here. Wouldn't have thought they'd be too worried about a Selfless Spirit, because... they'll have overrun effects in this deck, I imagine. Alright, and that is one card that I've had recommended to me in the previous video to remove because, yeah, I've obviously completely forgotten about it, but the creation of a food, treasure and clue token is a replacement effect, meaning that with this you would not get the creature food copy token, you would just get a regular food. So, actually a bit of a numbo having Academy Manufactor in the deck, but... we will try to play around it here. So just going to go after the Kodama's Reach and try to ramp a little bit. And I suppose we might as well swing in with the Selfless Spirit here because we're not going to be blocking with it. Going to pass priority automatically as well. If our opponent manages to get off a Swords to Plowshares on it or something, then so be it. Obviously we would sacrifice in response, but for the sake of moving the game along, I'll just auto-yield. An Imperious Perfect coming down and creating a token straight away. That's definitely an elf deck from our opponent. And they're getting a decent amount of use out of this Lightning Greaves. Got an extra token there, which they shouldn't necessarily have had. Deciding to protect the Lord here. Alright, there's Rhystic Study. So getting down Brenard should be okay here. And then we'll have 6 mana next turn for maybe Rex Sage and Rhystic Study. They might find it more difficult to swing into a Rex Sage with Brenard in play. Yeah, either way we'll get the commander down. Can always sacrifice Selfless Spirit in response to any attacks, because this will come down with more toughness. And it might be that they're not going for board wipes anyway while they're littering the board with creatures. But chances are they won't swing in here. They do have a 3-3 to contend with the Brenard. Could always get another Lord effect into play though. Alright, there's a Solemn Simulacrum for a bit of ramp. Wouldn't have thought they'd need that in an elf deck. And managing to hold them off just with the Brenard, so we'll hold on to the Selfless Spirit, no reason not to. Alright, and that is an Organic Extinction, which is good with the Selfless Spirit in play, so go for the Cultivate, and we'll throw Reclamation Sage onto the Lightning Greaves as well, I think. Got surplus mana for a Rhystic Study now, and only a few cards in hand, so I think they play around that quite successfully. A token made by the Perfect at the end of the turn. And there we see a Seedball Muse, so we'll be able to double the generation of the Imperious Perfect, as well as being able to hold up mana during our turn. That is, yeah, they've got 6 mana for Reese the Redeemed as well, so it would be better for them to go for the 6 mana into that. So it might be time for the Organic Extinction now. We see a Sensor Splicer, so drop a land, and we'll go after this, I think. So I'll sacrifice the Selfless Spirit first. We'll get a token copy of that. So now we can improvise like that. I actually miscalculated there. I thought we had enough mana. We're down by 1. So we'll just go for the Sensor Splicer. Just have to hope that we don't get an overrun on us. And that will give us the extra artifact that we need in order to actually pay for the Organic Extinction next turn. Might as well get down the Rhystic Study here. Wouldn't have thought we'd draw too many cards from that because our opponent will have surplus mana thanks to the Seedball Muse. Our opponent responding to the Study, copying everything, so making 3 more tokens, and then does get a Convoke spell here. And that is a Chord of Calling where X is 7, so you'd think they would have saved that for their turn if they've got a Crater Hoof Behemoth available to them. Okay, well, fair enough, not going for the typical Hoof win. That is Regal Force going to refill their hand. So yeah, we just have to hope that the Organic Extinction actually is able to go off next turn. Oracle of Muldiah going to encourage our opponent to pay an extra mana. I suppose the Rhystic Study is going to do the encouraging there, and they do pay it. 12 cards in our opponent's hand. And we see what's coming, that is an Elvish Archdruid. Made a token with the Lord again. Doesn't look like our opponent's going to overrun on us, which I'm grateful for. It's noteworthy I did ask for some casual fun, because we don't have an optimised list here, so obviously in a regular Reese deck our opponent would have overrun us there and we would have been dead this turn. Okay, there is a Muldrifter. Start refilling our hand with that. It's a shame we can't get it down now. If we pay 3, we'd get a token copy of the Muldrifter. Tap that down for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Still 2 mana away from the extinction. I am counting correctly this time. Might be that our opponent can go for a heroic intervention or something this time anyway. Alright, so that successfully goes down. Takes our Brenard with it. Decided to hold on to the Selfless Spirit because, like I said, we are in a more fun game here and we've got time against our opponent to recast our commander, I think. So obviously could have kept the Brenard around by giving it indestructible, but see what our opponent's got for us here. Might be able to wipe the board himself. Elvish Archdruid, we know he has just drawn into. And correctly paying into the Study. If we get into a land next turn, we'll be able to go Muldrifter and evoke it. More ramp from our opponent with a Farhaven Elf. Okay, not getting into a land. That is a Thought Monitor. Is going to cost how much? I'm going to be lazy. Only 2 mana, so we can go for our commander and the Thought Monitor. This obviously has affinity for artifacts. We've got lots of artifacts in play thanks to our previous board wipe. So draw 2 cards to that and still don't get into a land, but be able to make one with the Nature's Law at least. And should start holding up Rootborn defences, although our opponent's not looking to wipe the board, I don't think, because he's playing out creatures into it. So we'll turn everything in sideways, or not, thanks to the Sensor Splicer we got a copy of during the Organic Extinction. Comes back in as an artifact copy, and obviously brought in a Phyrexian Golem with it. So no reason not to swing in for a big chunk of damage there, taking our opponent down to 19. Seeing a Myria the Sky Rune from our opponent, but needs a lot more planes in play. That is a mirror entity, can be a good means of an overrun effect like we mentioned before, does count as an elf as well. Particularly good with the Elvish Archdruid in play. Not sure our opponent's going to be able to outrace us though. And Reese the Redeemed coming back in for 3 mana. So they've got 4 mana off the Elvish Archdruid and 3 mana held up, 5 cards in hand. And no means of token generation at the moment, unfortunately. Alright, that gets us into a land thanks to the card draw previously, so play out Verdant Catacombs. No reason not to go Nature's Law, I don't think. And then we can go for the evoke cost on the Muldrifter. That will come down, draw us 2 cards, and because it's been evoked, it will sacrifice itself, which of course will trigger the Brenard. Okay, and there is a Path to Exile from our opponent. That is going on to the Brenard. Nothing we can do about this. Yeah, just have to let that go. We do get another land into play at least. Still get to draw the 2 cards though. Okay, an Anointed Procession and a Darksteel Splicer gives golems indestructible. We've got plenty of golems. Not the mana to cast this though. So yeah, while we've got the Selfless Spirit to protect our board, I don't think I need to hold up Rootborn defences. We'll go for the Anointed Procession instead. And we get the debuff on our creatures, so might be that our opponent was wanting us to swing in and then could have debuffed them all by 2 on both the power and toughness with the Path to Exile, and then maybe gang up on some things, but yeah, obviously decided against that. Could have really hurt us with the mirror entity there, which is why, yeah, it's 5 mana he's got up, so could have turned these into 6/6s thanks to the buff on this as well. Which is why I just decided to go in with the Selfless Spirit. Could do with a Reese the Redeemed on this side of the field actually. Might be an idea for some more casual Brenard decks. And Elvish Guidance now. Enchant a land and you can tap it for mana per elf you control. So 4 cards in hand, really ramping over there. Followed by a Seal of Primordium, so probably goes after the Anointed Procession with that. Although is paying into the Rhystic Study, maybe sick of being slowed down by that card. although it does have a surplus of mana, so probably the white enchantment here. Alright, so there is a foundation breaker. We can force the issue by getting rid of the Seal of Primordium. If they're holding onto it for a specific reason, they might be worried about something. Our commander is 8 now, I think. Yeah, which means we can play that and hold up the Rootborn defences in case they blow up the Selfless Spirit. So just go in for 3 points of damage in the air again. And it will be a copy of this that we make with the Rootborn, I think. Don't think we're going to be doing it at the end of our opponent's turn regardless. Maybe we will if we want to go for the Darksteel Splicer. Should be able to cast that next turn. Especially with the Anointed Procession being in play, getting 2 copies of a token down would be good. Obviously they can respond with the seal though. Our opponent makes a token himself at the end of the turn. A Liquimetal Torque now, so if our opponent's able to blow up an enchantment or an artifact, then they'll be able to turn this into one first, so maybe turning our commander into that and then using this. And we'll force them to do it because we do have that Rootborn defences held up. Our opponent's got some tech here, so should have cracked the Verdant Catacombs in order to hold this up. Yeah, now they've got a chance to respond by us cracking this. We'll just do this now, because it might be that they don't play around a Rootborn defences. Okay, allowing us to do that is good, so Savannah allows us to respond now. Elspeth Knight Errant into play. We'll be able to generate tokens and give things flying until it's just the end of their turn, thankfully. So just making a token. Oh, I completely forgot this has flying as well, actually. I should have been swinging in with this. I've made a few mistakes this video, but yeah, like I said, it's been a fun game regardless. This has been like classic 1v1 Commander that is very much lacking on Magic Online now. It's all very, very spiky, so glad to play a game like this. Let's go for the Darksteel Splicer, and we can still hold up that Rootborn defences if we want to. And this might force our opponent's hand. Be in a tricky spot if they let this land, assuming that this is the only means of blowing things up. They either target this to remove Indestructible, but then a token copy of this comes down as a golem, and it will give itself Indestructible. So they'd have to go after the commander first, really. Anyway, we get a couple of golems there. All of them have Indestructible, Trample, and Vigilance. We can't get through with our golems on the ground anyway because of the mirror entity. Going to ignore the Elspeth and just hope. Oh, damn it, and I forgot to swing in with this again. I'm sure a lot of you are grinding your teeth and seething at this game. As you can tell, I'm not particularly taking it seriously. So our opponent tapping down a load of mana is probably going to go for some token doubling with the Reese. We'll get 2 tokens as opposed to 1. Another token from Elspeth. Alright, now seeing a duplicant, so yeah, in typical Celestia style they've got exile as opposed to destruction, so Rootborn defense is not as good as it might be. Going for that onto the Darksteel Splicer is probably a good idea because of the play that we mentioned previously, so yeah, nothing we can do about that. Maybe they're looking to turn in sideways with a bunch of stuff, so we can go for the Rootborn defences in response. Gives us an excuse to double up some tokens. Okay, they decide not to do that, so still holding that Seal of Primordium against us. Alright, there's a Mana Crypt, so play that out straight away. Not sure we can go for Phyrexian Triniform and the Foundation Breaker, but I think Foundation Breaker might be able to encourage our opponent to try and do something in response, so we'll go for that evoked as well. This does the same thing as Muldrifter. Might target our Brenard here. Point that at the Liquimetal Torque. Liquimetal Torque goes on to, yes, our commander, as we thought, so we'll wait for them to crack the seal. They should probably wait for us to target the seal with the evoked copy of the Foundation Breaker, but not wanting us to get a copy of that at all. Just going for the Brenard now. So that allows us into the Rootborn defences here, so us waiting on that has played out nicely. We get our 2 token copies that we wanted, so point that at the Selfless Spirit so that we can continue to hold up Indestructible. Get a couple of copies of those over here. They're also flyers to get through, although we're ignoring our flyers for the most part apparently this game. The evoke will resolve, so Brenard will ask us if we want to exile. We'll just say yes and get a couple more token copies here. Only have, oh, I thought we had 1 target, but We've got Duplicant and we've got this aura that I forgot about as well, so blow that up on the land. They've still got plenty of mana thanks to the Elvish Archdruid, tapping that in response. And then it looks like the Reese is going to just make use of that mana straight away. So copying all the tokens. And we're 1 mana shy away from going for the Phyrexian Triniform, unfortunately. Otherwise I would have tapped out here. Now, are we worried about... They've got 1 card in hand. Are we worried about the Elspeth and the emblem on that? I think we just have to... We've missed out on quite a bit of damage on our opponent thanks to this not turning in sideways. So, yeah, I think we're best just going all in at our opponent. Mirror Entity going to give a buff to their stuff because they had some surplus mana there. So go through to the attacking phase. And it's 5 points of damage on our opponent. Should be able to get them next turn because we've got 9 damage on the Selfless Spirits. 11 damage with the Thought Monitor if we decide to swing in with that. So it's all on our opponent to do something now, but it will have to be Mass Exile based really, because we've got the Selfless Spirits. Either that or they can win with the Overrun effect this turn. If they win with the Overrun this turn, I don't think the damage that we missed out on Thought Monitor will make a difference. At the absolute maximum, I think that was 6 damage, but I think it was 4 that we missed out on. I suppose they could maybe give flying to all their stuff, although I'm not sure how they do that. A plus on the Elspeth again. And then through to attacks, they decide to swing in with a bunch of stuff. I think we have to make blocks here. It's a shame that the one time that we swing in with a Thought Monitor, we can't block with it now to get a couple of copies of it. Our opponent just wanting to see how much damage he can deal here, really. Might be able to get us. Alright, so there's 1 creature getting through at the moment. I'm throwing the Brenard in the way. And I'll make my opponent dump mana into the Mirror Entity before I sacrifice a Selfless Spirit. Might be that they can give Trample at instant speed. So it would go through a sacrificed Selfless Spirit. And that could be relevant. Mirror Entity just going to put a little bit of mana into itself. Okay, now tapping the Elvish Archdruid, so yeah, that might be a waste of mana that they just made, which could make all the difference. Haven't actually totted this up. Mirror Entity turning everything into all creature types and base power and toughness, wow. And they've got 28 damage on us, excellent. So the one time that we swing in with this, apparently I shouldn't have done. So it's good gain to my opponent, excellent. Yeah, congratulations to my opponent, that was a fun one. Wanted to play with Brenard Ginger Sculptor again, like I said. And if you're seething and raging in the comments section about how I threw that game away and how could I do such a thing, then calm down. It's just a bit of fun. It's okay. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.